Good morning, good afternoon, folks. My name is Daryl O'Donnell. I'd like to introduce you to the first GAN webinar. We are pleased to welcome Bhutan National Digital Identity. They have joined the GAN, and we're going to be talking a little bit about that. Alex, if you just jump to the next slide, perhaps. Just please note that we are recording this webinar, as well as we're going through the discussions. If you have any questions, we're going to have a panel type discussion here, but if you have any questions, please drop them into the Q&A. We will have time at the end of the call to go through as many questions as we can. Next slide, Alex. So I am Daryl O'Donnell. I'm the Executive Director for GAN, Global Acceptance Network. That is a temporary name. We are in the middle of, as we stood up on the 1st of July, one of the first things we're doing is coming up with an overall trust mark and brand. But my role as Executive Director is to lead this organization, which is gathering many, many different ecosystems around the globe. Secretary Jigme, if you can introduce yourself, please.
Hi, so my name is Jigme Tenzing, and I'm responsible to look at digital transformation for the Royal Government of Bhutan. Very excited to be here on the first webinar on GAN, and very excited to share about the experience that we've had with our national digital identity. Over to you, Darren. You're still muted.
Yep, sorry. Kinga, if you can introduce yourself, please. Thank you, Secretary Jigme.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kinga. I'm Kinga Zam, and I'm under GovTech along with Secretary Jigme. I'm the Director for Department of Digital Transformation. So I'm helping and lead the digital transformation for the Royal Government of Bhutan. Excited to be here to share our NDI experience. Thank you.
Thank you. Jacques, if you could introduce yourself, please.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jacques. I'm the Group CTO for Druk Holdings and Investment. We are the commercial arm of the Royal Government of Bhutan. One of my key tasks is to digitally transform the company. And so I work very closely also with Secretary Jigme and with Kenga, who drive the digital transformation in the government. And so both our groups, as the two biggest employers, obviously wanted something that we can use to underpin the digital transformation. So we wanted a Web3 capable identity. And so this is one of the projects that I look at. Thank you.
And Drummond, please.
Yes, Drummond Reed, Director of Trust Services at GEN and Governance Content Lead for the Global Acceptance Network and worldwide ambassador, shining a light on the lighthouse of the Bhutan National Digital Identity System, which I had the incredible pleasure 2 weeks ago of visiting in person for the Bhutan Innovation Forum. That inspired this webinar, and I'm so glad to be here because everyone needs to understand what they're doing in Bhutan. It's amazing.
Thank you, Drummond. And for the audience, Drummond is on his way to Beijing. So at some point, he's going to be going and dropping to audio. We may lose him for a bit as he moves over to the actual airplane to fly away. Next slide, Alex. So we're here to talk about two things. I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about GAN. And then Jacques is going to explain a bit about Bhutan NDI. And then we're going to have a panel discussion. GAN, the whole reason behind this global acceptance network is that we've observed over the last half decade or so that digital trust ecosystems are emerging everywhere. All over the globe, we're seeing these really, really pop up. But what we're also recognizing is that they're not as big as we all thought, that they have to interconnect. And that's when their true potential really gets realized, is when they're connecting, and that means they have to be interoperable. That requires that we have seamless connection across all of these different ecosystems. And that's really essential for unlocking the real value behind things. Individual ecosystems work really, really well. You're going to hear about a really well-performing digital trust ecosystem in Bhutan. But we also believe that that is just the beginning and that the value is really unlocked as we move ahead. What GAN is doing is we are establishing a trust layer for the internet. The whole purpose of that is to enable the cross-ecosystem exchange of both verifiable data and value, meaning we're going to unlock how do we get data that we can trust, that's authentic, but also how do we make sure that that is sustainable and that there's value provided, and therefore, when that's true, that payment is made. Next slide, please. And how we're doing this is we're establishing a neutral nonprofit. The whole goal is for GAN to both unite the commercial organizations that are using things, but make certain that the first priority is all of the individuals, especially, and other stakeholders for this digital trust ecosystem are protected and really, really thrive inside of it. So to do this, we are building and governing a digital public infrastructure that connects trust ecosystems. We are an ecosystem of ecosystems, but our main job is to connect those ecosystems that exist and those that are being created. We do that by enabling authentic, that's really, really critical, private and secure relationships. And that really underpins and supports the exchange of trusted and valuable information. Next slide, please. If we talk about the pieces behind this, there's this GAN organization, this neutral nonprofit we're creating. It's going to operate this GAN trust network, which will have some infrastructure. GAN itself is not a software development shop. We are more of an operations and governance shop. We operate underneath a GAN governance framework. That's the overall trust framework that guides how we do things. And how we connect many, many ecosystems, including that ecosystem that Bhutan NDI will be speaking about here. One of the main goals that we have, one of the main pieces that we have as far as tech is to make sure that we have a conformance test suite. That allows us on a technical basis, but also on a business and governance basis. And we actually always say in the house, business, governance, and tech in that order, to make sure that when these systems connect via GAN, that we know that they're going to work. Next slide, please. This is some of our founders and recent members. If you want to join, please reach out to us. You can hit our website /join, gan.foundation/join, or reach out to anyone here that you know that is on the call or anyone who is working with GAN. I think the next slide is Jacques. There we go.
Thanks, Daryl. So it's my privilege to give you a very quick overview of where we are today in the National Digital Identity. So let's just jump straight in, Alex. We'll go to the next slide. So Bhutan is a very small country nestled between India and China. So, we're surrounded by two very big superpowers. And so we're one of only 6 countries in the world that have never been occupied. And so we have a very interesting history. We only introduced internet and TV in 1999. So in terms of a digital world, it's quite a new environment for these sort of technologies. So if we can, the last statement there, the population is only 700 and a few thousand people. And so when you look at the numbers of adoption and stuff, when we talk about that, always keep in mind that out of the 700 and something thousand people, what is the work size? And then as we talk about the adoption, we'll talk about the targets or the particular groups that we target. So some of the interesting facts, we are completely landlocked, like I said, between China and India. We have 82% of the country which is under forest cover, and this is a very interesting figure because the constitution says we have to keep 60% under forest cover. The Bhutan Statistics Bureau say 72% is under cover, and then our partners Plantech, which use satellite photography to actually review, came up and said, no, actually you're 82% undercover. So we prefer to use the bigger number, so that's why the 82%. We were the first country in the world that was carbon negative, so we sequester a lot more carbon than what we actually produce. We also have 5 of the highest unclimbed mountain peaks in the world. And the reason for that is we have certain regulations that people aren't allowed to climb higher than a certain height on a mountain. And so these mountains are much higher and they're just not allowed to be climbed. We measure gross national happiness, not GDP. And there's a lot of documentation about why that's important and how it's measured. But it's always so, as government entities, we always have to make sure that the projects that we work on meets and satisfies the particular KPIs for gross national happiness. And it's never about the money, it's about inclusion, it's about security, it's about making sure that nobody is left behind when we do projects. And like I said, the country was isolated from the rest of the world. We only opened up for first tourists in 1974 and only introduced the internet in 99. Next slide, please, Alex. So here's just technologically, what have we done? So in 99, we introduced TV and internet. By 2003, we launched the first mobile telephone services, and we only have 2 telephone services company in the country. We're about to add another internet ISP for the first time. And we also managed to get to the point of 100% mobile penetration in the late of 2015, which means in less than 2 decades, we actually became or got 100% mobile penetration. In 2015, we launched mobile agencies for banking, and we transitioned from a cash-based economy to digital finance. And so when COVID hit, we were actually very prepared to use QR codes and stuff. And you'll see in the way that we use the platform, we continue to use QR codes for our proof requests and things like that. So it's something that the population of Bhutan was already quite used to. In 2021 and beyond, that's when we decided to launch the Web3 wallet. A little bit of history, we do want to add the financial aspects into the wallet, and we're in the design phase for that. So working with central bank digital currencies so that we have it next to the identity in the wallet. And we also have a digital signing capability in the app, which would give you all those things. You can sign contracts, you can make payments, and you can also, use things like zero proof requests to make sure that you protect your identity. A lot of the tech that we use today, we'll talk a little bit more. Good timing, Alex. A lot of the tech that we are building, we have very specific problems that we want to solve. Inclusion and privacy/security are probably the main focus that we have. So we have a large unbanked population, and we have quite a large part of the population which aren't educated to the correct levels and standards. So we're working on that community. We have about 55% of the population that work in agriculture, but they only contribute 2% of the revenue of the country. So there is a big imbalance in that sense, and a lot of it has to do with education. So we work hard on education. We want to make this future-proof, so we didn't want to go from the current paper IDs that we have to, a smart digital card like our neighbors, the Aadhaar system in India has done, and a lot of Europe has got. So we decided to just, decide what is the most future-proof, what is going to be around in the next 10 to 15 years, and it was clear that it's going to be decentralized digital identity, so we jumped that path. We're a small country. We don't have a lot of money, so we wanted to do something that wouldn't be overly expensive. And so we also publish on the Bhutan NDI website. There's a dashboard, and you can go into the dashboard and see how people sign up to use the platform, how many verifications we get done, even down to how much money are we spending on AWS, where we're hosting most of the microservices that we use for the platform. We also share how big the team is, what the skills profile is of the team, what the costs around that stuff is. So we're very open about it. We do use open source platform, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. In terms of scalability, like I mentioned, everything is microservices. Everything is deployed on AWS in Singapore region, which means we have auto-scaling scripts. So we cope very well with peaks. We do see a lot of peaks every time there's some kind of a national event or somebody speaks about the platform on TV or on social media. We do see a spike in people jumping onto the platform. So scalability is a really important thing. We've also recently sold the platform to Papua New Guinea, who has a population of around 20 million people. So scalability is really important, making sure that we can move from a 700,000 country size to a 20 million one without any problems. So we wanted to spend a lot of time and make sure that this is customer focused or customer centric. So we spend a lot of time on user experience to make sure that it's a very integrated digital experience for people. And so we wanted for people to really experience the benefit of a decentralized identity. So getting to the point where you're not just doing simple single sign-ons, but you also have the wallet getting proof requests, filling in the digital forms for you, and the systems in the backend not relying on PDF documents and things like that the old system used to. In terms of trust and security, we have a couple of things in the platform that really give us trust and security. So we have a blockchain underneath. It's already the third one. So we started on Sovereign, then we went to Indicio, then we went to Polygon, and we're now just testing on Ethereum as well. And then after Ethereum, we're going to use and test with Ripple. From trust, we do have a trust registry where we list all of the verifiers and issuers. We list what they can and cannot ask for, and what they can issue. And so there's a whole part that's linked to our revocation agent. So we built a revocation agent rather than using the standard-based list, because we do work in an environment where we often don't have an internet connection. So when we do mobile verifications and things like that by the police or our DSUPs, then we can't always rely on the internet being there. So we can't have functions that call home and check for the status of a credential with a list somewhere on the internet. And then parcel digitalization. So we are very aware that not everybody has a smartphone and not everybody wants to carry a smartphone. So we also look at what can be done for inclusion in those things. And so we'll talk a little bit about, our paper version of a digital credential. We'll also talk about where we are on this digital transformation process, because these things do take many years. And so there's an overlap between our paper version of the ID and our Web3 version of the IDD, which is a digital credential. And so how do we phase those and prioritize those services over time? And then we do have a regulation compliant eKYC capability that we built with the banks to make sure that we can actually open things like a bank account. So when I started in Bhutan nearly 4 years ago, it took me almost 3 months to open a bank account with lots of forms and stamps and fingerprints and all that sort of stuff. And now with the new system, you can open a bank account, a digital bank account, in less than 10 seconds. So starting to roll out these complex processes where more than one agency is involved is particularly important, and is what we're currently doing. So Alex, next slide. So how can you get access to the platform? There's a couple of things. So there's the Bhutan NDI website, which you see, bhutanndi.com. And if you look under one of the high-level menus, there's the dashboard that I mentioned earlier. Then from a platform perspective, it's on 3 different operating systems. Google, which everybody understands, is the Android platform, iOS, which is Apple, and then also KaiOS. KaiOS is both handsets and an operating system. And we have a wallet on that particular platform that's a little bit less in terms of functionality than Android and Apple, but it allows you to run it on a phone, which outright costs you $30 to buy. And there's more than 500 million of those phones spread across Africa and India. And then in terms of organizations, of course, we have issuers, we have verifiers, and we'll speak a little bit about them in a second. At the moment, we're also working on a web wallet. So the web wallet should be launched within the next month or so, which would then also give you the ability to, if you don't have a smartphone, that you can use a kiosk or you can use a laptop or something like that. Alex, next one. So what does the NDI wallet design look like? So it's biometrics enabled. And it's an edge wallet, meaning that we have the app on your wallet. We store verifiable credentials. We store them in any one of 2 formats. So we can do anon-creds and we can do W3C, so the JSON LD format. And like I said in the beginning, everything is cryptographically signed. All the data items when they're issued as part of your credential. We recently moved all of the signatures. So we moved from BBS Plus to Crystal Kyber. So we introduced the NIST post-quantum algorithms. I know we don't need them right now or for the next 10 years, but we might as well have them and be prepared. So we spend a lot of time on making sure that there is a lot of security in terms of public-private keys. So because it's a decentralized identity. In terms of the currency transactions, so we are building CDBCs and stablecoins in, and we're working with a company called Nuggets to see how that works with a decentralized ID. And then the verifiable credentials, like I said before, in an Edge wallet, it's stored in your Edge wallet, except if you're using the web wallet, then there'll be an encrypted, and the wallet will sit on AWS essentially, and it would require your biometrics to actually take that wallet and bring it back onto the device that you're using at that time, whether it's an iPad or a laptop or tablet. We do offer the capability for you to back up or keep an encrypted version in secure cloud storage. It's sharded and double encrypted, and it's a whole complicated way of storing it and getting it back, but it's biometric enabled, so you don't have to remember the 10 or 12 words to be able to recover it. And also we have a rule that there's only one wallet at any one time on one device, except if it's a custodial wallet. Then we make the rules slightly different. So if you have it on your phone and you lose your phone, you can always recover it, but you can't have it on your phone and another tablet or in two phones. It's always only going to be active on one of those. Alex, next one. So you'll just see a couple of slides. This is what the app actually looks like in real life. So when you open the app, the little image you see in the middle of the phone actually rotates, and then you'll see Alex, if you can just tap so those are what the verifiable credentials and the UI looks like. It gives you some totals up there. We have over 120 use cases at the moment that's in the list that we're working on. You'll see the numbers of the ones which we've already deployed. So we think you will have probably 50 or 60 credentials. So you need the ability to favor some of them. You need to be able to find ones which are active and non-active so that you can get next ones, new ones. And so these are just some of the ones that we see used a lot. So this is an example of an employment credential showing, that this person is working at DHI. Behind that information actually is things about role, how much they earn, what access do they have in the main systems on the network and stuff like that. What you see with the share and deny is we always ask whether you want to share this information with the system that's requesting, and you can deny if for some reason you're not comfortable. These are just some of the relationships that this wallet is holding. So Bank of Bhutan, DHI, where we work, Citizen Services, Royal Government of Bhutan, and DCRC is basically our census database. So part of that trust capability we talked about in the beginning, in our legal framework in Bhutan, the only identity that is used to access what we call core government services or government to citizen services, like applying for a driver's license or a passport, is an identity that is issued by the government. So our initial identity is actually biometrically checked and verified with the census database before we create the Web3 wallet, and then we create the Web3 wallet and we break the link between the Web3 wallet and the old identity so that the government can't actually track your new wallet. And a lot of people would say, because you start with the government ID, it's not true self-sovereign identity, but we make a very strict point about separating that link so that once your first identity is in your wallet, it can no longer be tracked. So that digital identity can't be tracked by the government. Okay. So these are some of the current services and industries that we already have verifiable credentials for. So like I said, the government, in fact, all the government to citizen services are already integrated at what we call level 1, which is single sign-on. Some of those are now being integrated to a level 2 already. Like I said, where the wallet is actually completing some of the forms, and some of the services you can only access through the National Digital Identity Wallet. So things like paying your land tax, you can only do using the app. And for all of the civil servants, when they go to work in the morning and they want to log into the basic portal where they can, apply for leave and all that sort of stuff, they can only access those services using the NDI app. Then a couple others, so transport, telecommunication, human resources, banking and finance through the Bank of Bhutan, education through the Royal University of Bhutan, where you can get your degrees and attestations and stuff from. And then some of the other interesting ones like Gelsong in the left bottom corner there, we have introduced a national service type thing you have to do after you finish school. That's fully integrated. So you can register for that service and it will take things like your education and your identity and things like that and actually fill in and register you for that service automatically. Alex, next one. So what do we do? So I did mention some of these already. So we issue a verifiable credential, and basically what that means is you have a JSON object that sits in your wallet, which is just a list of data items. Each of those data items are cryptographically signed by the agency that's issuing it or the company that's issuing it, which is why they're called verifiable credentials. We have the verifiable eKYC platform that we spoke about, which are used by the banks, but it's not restricted to the banks. So the telco companies, the telecommunication companies also use it to give us a verified telephone number as a credential. We also have a verifiable credential image as a verifiable credentials, because sometimes when we disconnect it from the network and you're being verified by a police officer, they need to be able to actually see that the person behind the wallet is the same person that's holding the phone. So we can actually, from the wallet, phone to phone, show them an image of the person behind the phone. And so they can do a verification like that. The passwordless login is the first level of use cases, which you call level 1. So all of the services are already integrated that way. And then we also do access management, like I've explained with DHI and with the civil service. We use the wallet to actually do access management, not just control or login. Thanks, Alex. Next one. So like I mentioned in the beginning, we have more than 140,000 people. So to give you a little bit of history, we made the Crown Prince when he was 7 years old. He actually became the first digital citizen. So he was the first person that onboarded February last year. And then we had A/B type testing with large groups, about 1,000 people until October last year. And then on the 13th of October, which happens to be His Majesty and the Queen's wedding anniversary, we launched it for the nation as an auspicious day, because it was His Majesty's idea to go down this path in the first instance, or his command that we should go down this path. So in this first year that we've just gone through, we've adopted 140,000, and the target group we targeted with the people that have internet access, have an iOS phone or an Android phone. And so that's a very distinct, and we think there's roughly 250,000 people in that group. So in the first year, we got over 50% of that group that we targeted. So we think it's a reasonable adoption rate. We think there'll be more adoption when we add the additional wallets. Like I said, the paper QR version, the web wallet, the Guardian wallet, and the custodial wallet. Because of the level of people that can't actually drive these for themselves for whatever reason, whether it's a disability or whether it's an education thing. And they normally get their kids to drive it. So we need both custodian and Guardian wallets. So once we complete those wallets in the next 6 to 9 months, we think the adoption rate will again jump significantly up after that. We have 32 G2C services, which is in fact all of them. And then we have more than 12 integrations on the way. So by integrations, what we mean, these are companies that we're integrating. So whether it's the second telco, we have 5 banks in the country. We've integrated with one, so the other 4 banks are now coming on board. It's also integrating with the electronic patient system and systems like that. So if we go to the next one, Alex. So these are some of the things which are on the roadmap. And some of these use cases are actually cross-border. So on the right-hand side, about middle 3/4 down, is air travel. So in India, they have a system called DigiYatra, where you can use a verifiable credential as your boarding pass. And they have these fast lanes in the airports in India, where lots of people are using these verifiable credentials to actually get on the plane very quickly, and they don't have to queue in the standard queues. We've also started working with Palau, who have digital identities which are on blockchain, and so we're verifying it that way. And we've also integrated another platform called SumSup. SumSup allows us to reach about 50 different countries where we can validate passports and driver's license at source. So that's the next big thing for the international people coming into Bhutan, that we will verify the identities that way. So if you go to the next one. So this is basically the high level overview of the platform. I'll maybe say just a little bit about Papua New Guinea. They went live last week, and we started deploying in Papua New Guinea from the 1st of May. So it took us about 4 months to replicate the platform plus the first 2 use cases for Papua New Guinea. And it took us nearly 3 years to build it to get to the point. And I think what's really interesting is when we moved it, it didn't take as much work as we thought that it would take. So we'll maybe talk a little bit about that later on. So that's the summary. Thanks, Daryl. Thanks, Alex.
Thank you very much, Jacques. It was interesting. We've seen a few questions. Just remember, if you do have questions, please put them in the Q&A. We'll get to them very, very shortly. I noted that there was a discussion already about you integrating with Digiyatra, which is integrated into Aadhaar, which implies a connection with MOSIP. But I have a question with regards to thinking about a comment Jacques made on European countries, as well as the Aadhaar and MOSIP systems, which are typically very, very centralized. Secretary Jigme, with a lot of countries going to the centralized approach, and Bhutan has gone to a decentralized approach. Why do you think that the decentralized approach fits Bhutan's needs better?
Thanks, Daryl. So when we started this journey to look at digital identities, I mean, we did look at centralized options. In fact, we were pretty close to adopting what Estonia had done. It was midway through this process that there was, a command that we received that we need to be very cautious about the privacy of citizens, and that led us down the road to look at when we talk about getting the benefits of digital transformation. A lot of times we are so fascinated by how this can benefit the population, but we tend to forget of the risk. And Bhutan is very recently graduated from a least developed country. We don't have a lot of resources. The amount of investment that is necessary to protect and safeguard a centralized infrastructure is substantial. It was actually quite, it would have been quite a challenging task. And to protect the information of the entire population. And it thus made much more sense to take this decentralized approach. We are much more secure in terms of the privacy of the population. And we also realized that there are a lot of advantages as well. I mean, the uptimes of some of the systems that we have do not necessarily have to go up to 5 nines. I mean, we have the opportunity to leverage individual devices to store information. So these are all benefits. But to cut the story short, I mean, ultimately it was a directive that we received that we need to be very mindful of the privacy of our citizens when we go down this digital transformation route as well.
Thank you very much, Secretary Jigme. Just for folks on the other end and our team here, Drummond is walking over to his plane to head to Beijing, so we may or may not have him online right now. Kanga, I understand you're responsible for integration work at GovTech. We'll hopefully hear from Drummond a little bit about Bhutan Innovation Forum and his view of it, because it was a very, very magical event for him. But I imagine it was very, very intense, and that now that you're done with that event, your rest of your work has started again. What's your next plan as far as, the integrations you're working on? I saw that you had many, many planned. What's first and second on your queue?
We are doing a lot of integration works, and I think my core responsibility is also to develop seamless services. And there are two big, a lot of other works we are doing, but two big things that we really want to do is the public service delivery and we are working currently on a national single window, the trade facilitation. So we are looking at integrating a lot of this. There are a lot of multiple document submission in those. So we are trying to really streamline the single window. So that ultimately aiming to do cross-border trade as well. So these are all built on the NDI. That is one, and the other one is also, like Jacques mentioned, they are already building the custodian walletship, the controller walletship, the web. So this is also one of the priorities for inclusion. A lot of public service delivery will need all those wallets. So that is the second one we are currently focusing on. And the third one is also for the private sector to now adopt the NDI and develop products and build products on their own, because our department also focus on developing the tech industry ecosystem in Bhutan. So those are things that we are currently focusing on.
Thank you very much. Jacques, one of the when we reached out to you and we talked about GAN, we were very, very, I wouldn't say surprised, but very happy to see how quickly you felt it was critical for Bhutan to join GAN. Why was that important, and what benefits do you see from joining GAN so you get that cross ecosystem effect? What did you see at that point in time?
Yeah, look, we made a lot of choices on the way to get to where we are. One of those choices were, should we go from a standard paper passport to a digital chip-based passport, or just jump straight into a verifiable credential, which is a digital passport? And we felt that we should just jump straight into the digital credential passport, because we feel that sort of in the next 5 to 10 years, more and more airports, we know the US is working on it, we know Europe's working on it, that's going to become the standard way of operating. And so for us to speed up that process, we feel that joining GAN is a very important part, because there are lots of countries working on tourist type use cases, and it seems to be one of the easier ones to start with and get you into this space. So we felt if we joined GAN and we could share, what we've done, the lessons that we've learned, so other people don't have to make the same mistakes, it would speed up the process. And we felt that GAN would give us that sort of much faster adoption into other countries than what we would get on our own, going to countries one by one. And so for us, we think GAN is the right vehicle to speed up this adoption process of decentralized digital identities across countries.
Thank you, Jacques. One of the things that we've taken the approach is that it's really, really hard to do the bilateral agreements, because you tend to solve somebody else's problem. We want, and what we like, the way you're approaching Bhutan NDI is you're solving your own problems.
Correct.
And you're working with other folks who are solving their own problems, which really the problems are not that hard to connect. It's when you try to do fix each other's problems that things get a little confusing. Secretary Jigme, we know that part of the longer-term plan, long-term thinking, is to leverage GAN to connect to other global ecosystems. How do you see this affecting Bhutan's economy?
Yeah. So I think one of the big, friction with connecting to the global economy is the challenge that we have identifying trustworthy individuals. And I think what GAN does is gives us the opportunity to remove a lot of that friction in really identifying individuals that gives us a really frictionless ability to really to benefit from a digital marketplace. I believe this is the start to really maximizing the benefit of the digital economy, whether it's about starting commerce, whether it's about travel. We are very excited.
Thank you. I got one more question actually for you again, Secretary Jigme. With regards to something we're seeing, I just finished a road trip. Drummond was as everyone has heard, in Bhutan. I was in Europe and Eurasia, and what we're hearing is that the ability to focus on one, a decentralized approach where information is held by the individual, but also to share information, which is where GAN comes in. We're hearing that even the most private areas really benefit from having a decentralized and ability to share, decentralized system that we can share with, which really applies to, for example, finance and health. Both of it, we all want to protect our financial data. It's all very privacy, as well as our health data. Are you seeing similar? Are you seeing similar things in the finance and healthcare area in Bhutan?
Yeah, so right now we are in the process of integrating NDI to our public health system. We in Bhutan, because we provide healthcare free of cost, from the state itself. We have a lot of information on medical data, and we also have a situation where we have citizens who have to travel, and in the past, or in fact, we are still in transition. So we still have a situation where people have to print out a lot of these medical records when they have to go to hospitals in other countries. We are actually thinking that if we can, through this decentralized self-sovereign approach, build enough trust in the system, we will then have the ability to even take something as private as medical data and have the ability to share this digitally. I mean, because we are thinking about creating systems where individuals have full control over their medical data. So I see this translating with a lot of very private data, whether it's finance. And I think if we can move to a much more decentralized way in managing data and a self-sovereign approach where individuals have full control over their data, the possibility of opening up private data will be significantly more, and I think the opportunities will go far beyond just finance and health. Yeah.
And I think the key that you raised there was to build the trust in the system.
Yeah.
So that people are comfortable sharing information into it. That allows you to reach like population scale. But you have to build that trust in the system, right?
Exactly.
That's I think you're doing going through the very, very right approach on all of this. Just for folks who are Drummond, I'm not sure if you're available. Are you there? I wanted you to add one comment. Are you
Daryl, I'm just getting on the plane. Can you give me about 1 minute?
Maybe I will do my best to perhaps speak for you.
Okay, good.
I can do this because Drummond at times is my work wife, so I pretty much know what he's going to say at times. One of the things that we have been hearing is as we look at systems like Bhutan sharing information and making it available in a very, very consistent way, this pattern repeats. So we start to see you're working in Papua New Guinea, you're working in other places, but the same approach applies. So you have almost 800,000 people in Bhutan, somewhere between 11 and 20 million in Papua New Guinea, depending on what the recent counts are. This capability is going to start to grow. Alex, I wanted to jump over. Do we have audience questions that we can jump into?
We have a number of questions on kind of cross-border interoperability, both from Daniel Backenheimer and Michelle Ponce.
Yep.
So one question, how will this NDI interoperate with other digital ecosystems elsewhere in the world through GAN? Jacques, maybe that's for you.
Sure. So I look at GAN. So when I explain to people how I understand GAN, I use the model of digital payments. So if you have a MasterCard or a Visa, you can walk up to a point of sale machine and you can tap that card and the network takes care of the actual integration, right? In terms of understanding that this particular payment token is connected to this wallet, which is connected to this bank, and you have the submitting banks and receiving bank, and the whole thing just happens, right? Because we're so used to it, it's almost, for us, it's frictionless. You tap it, it says ping, you've paid, and off you go. So GAN for me is the same thing. By using the GAN infrastructure, I wouldn't need to, there's currently about 6 different standards, JSON LD, some other JSONs, zero knowledge proofs, and non-creds. I don't want to build one version of each of those so that I can connect to each of the different places. I basically want a mechanism for me to be able to say, hey, this is me, give it to the GAN network, and the GAN network would say, oh, but the Netherlands is asking for it, and I might be submitting in one standard, and the Netherlands might need it in another standard. And that interoperability is happening on that middle layer or that infrastructure. In software terms, we call it a canonical model. So there's a service bus in the middle, there's a canonical model. We all each understand the canonical model. So we submit in that format, and the bus can then, use that canonical model to send it to anybody. So which is a standard enterprise pattern that's been around for a long time. So I see GAN working in that way. So, and that would mean that I don't have to create a new integration layer for every single country that I connect to, or every single ecosystem. So I think that would speed up the interoperability and getting back to my earlier statement, that's why we joined GAN. We think that's going to be a game changer.
Thank you, Jacques. Drummond, you're now in your seat. I know one of the things that we talked about was that you were at the Bhutan Innovation Forum to do really 2 things. One was to be recognized as, I think, Jacques, you were saying that Drummond was the 4th oldest Bhutan NDI player because he was involved in writing the act for Parliament. Is that correct? But also to see, so he was able to see the Bhutan NDI system in play, but also, Drummond, you were there for another reason, which was to unveil something. But perhaps you can jump in. I'm wondering if you're on mute, Drummond. Maybe we have lost Drummond. I know that when I sit down on the planes, the cell cover is pretty sketchy. But one of the reasons, so Drummond was there in Bhutan for a couple of reasons. One, he was invited to speak on a few panels. Oh, yeah, we've lost Drummond completely. And I think, Jacques, you were saying that there were 4 Nobel laureates there, so you needed an extra Drummond factor to be at the forum. But he was there to visit with the NDI team, where Kenga, Jacques, Secretary Jigme, and others were there. But was also there to speak about the launching of this GAN, this Global Acceptance Network. The one of the comments that Jacques made to me, and then this is kudos to the investment that Druck Holdings, which is please correct me if I've got this correct, that is the investment arm of the Royal Government of Bhutan. That Druck Holdings has done 2 things. One is, yes, it's built a system There's many questions over asking about, how did you get these things? Why didn't you work with Open Wallet Foundation? The answer to that is didn't exist then. But I'm sure that's very an active thing. But as you went and built the technology, you also, what Drummond's takeaway to me was, you have built the capacity inside Bhutan such that, and Kenga, you raised this earlier as, your job is part of your job is not just to integrate things, but to make sure you're building the tech industry inside of Bhutan. Secretary Jigme, perhaps I'm curious what your thoughts are as one of the government leaders on how important it is to not just build the system, but to build the capacity inside the country so that when you go and deploy your system to Papua New Guinea, that they're reaching back into Bhutan. They're not reaching back into the London offices of some large consultancy. They're reaching back into Bhutan and tapping your people to get the job done. I imagine that's a very important thing for you.
Yeah, Daryl. Definitely, we have the capacity to provide that support, but we don't necessarily have to do everything in Bhutan, right? I mean, whatever can be done in Bhutan is done from Bhutan. We have excellent partners in India, and we have partners in many countries. And I think the approach that we would like to take is we are many of the things that we are building is all open source, and we are also working towards building capacities in the countries that we go, so that they actually have the capacity to manage these systems. I mean, digital identity is extremely important for any country.
I imagine it's probably a lot easier, I would think, for a country to look at a partner country and say, hey, I know I need to go build these muscles and you did it and I can learn from you, as opposed to, let's go hire the same consultancy. That said, I know that there's an opportunity to for consultants and other businesses to build on top of the infrastructure that Bhutan NDI. Bhutan is not diving into, what I've seen at least, the commercial side. It's building the rails by which more business can be developed and more capabilities can be developed. And that's a pretty powerful pattern. Just noted a next question. Any opportunities to get involved in the below projects, GAN, Bhutan NDI, CBDC, to build various use cases listed in the slide deck based on SSI? And that's from Parthbot. Who would want to answer that question? Certainly on the GAN side, absolutely. And then Jacques, if you want to jump in on the NDI CBDC side.
Absolutely. New friends and partners always welcome. We
Yeah.
find a way. If you want to be part of it, we find a way.
Yeah. And what I'm seeing when we look at it, at what Bhutan is doing, and this relates to another question regarding, have any other governments been talking, if you've been talking to, I know, for example, certainly, where I am in Canada, there've been some casual discussions on how one could integrate, but because the system is built in an open manner, to me, you can build a business there, you can build integrations at whatever level you really want, which I think is a really powerful thing, as opposed to waiting upon, Bhutan to do the work. That makes no sense especially outside of Bhutan. It probably doesn't make a lot of sense for the commercial businesses inside Bhutan. They need to basically sit on top of that rail and whatnot.
Correct. And in fact, we also recognize that. So in Bhutan, we actually collected all the IT companies for a whole day and trained them on how to do the integrations and stuff. So 6 or 7 of them are delivering services for Secretary Jigme and GovTech. And then we use a couple of others to help us. And then we also have a team, a foreign-based team that helped us with Papua New Guinea. So yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. I think we have time for one more question, then we'll just do a quick wrap up. Perhaps, I'm not sure if this is for Kenga or Jacques, but can you explain how Bhutan NDI and ADAR, so you have one is W3C, like a SSI verifiable credential, and the other one's PKI, how do they interop how do they interoperate? Which trust frameworks are allowing them to do these things today?
Yeah. So I'll take that one. Kinga's still quite new in her role. So at the moment, they don't integrate in the true sense of where you can use a Bhutan NDI in India like you could use an Aadhaar card in India. So, and there are several reasons for that. The one is the highest court in India has actually told the government to not trust at certain layers of security that card. So we kind of slowed down on that true integration. So there is another version of Aadhaar, which is called digital Aadhaar, which is more trusted because there's less duplicates in it. So in that one, it has an API layer, and we're busy investigating at how we can actually do that integration. There is a company in India that we're talking to, and they've done that integration for Germany. So they were working on a platform in Germany, and they've created that integration. If you wanted to become a worker in Bhutan and you wanted to use your Aadhaar card as your identity to onboard using our app, then we use the SumSub platform. So SumSub is a third-party platform that does have digital access into the Aadhaar platform. And once we provide them with the information, they do that check and go into the back systems and verify whether the Aadhaar card that we have is correct. And then when we do the biometrics verification, we also pass the template of the biometrics to them. And they then can also do a deduplication check and make sure that it's the right human connected to the right Aadhaar digital card before they tell us that it's all good. And then we'll onboard them in that way. The plan is, of course, in future that we do want the two platforms to be able to interchange. And I've seen there was a question about MOSUP as well. So there are places in Africa where both MOSUP and us have jointly worked together. So Rwanda is an example. We haven't worked together, but we've proposed to work together. There's an RFP going on at the moment in Rwanda. So the idea is always there. There are questions, right? So MOSUP is centralized and our philosophy is decentralized. And we do slightly different things. We both have a digital identity, which is used for that sort of what we call level 1 integration, single sign-on, and the basic verification or authentication of who you are. But beyond that, MOSUP hasn't really built any of the other verifiable credentials like we have your passport, your driver's license, your education, and all that sort of stuff. So we still, and I mean, we've been on many conferences together and we talk to one another and stuff to see, but how can we actually augment MOSUP? Because MOSUP is already in many of the African countries. And if we can find a way where we may maybe provide the additional credentials and they still take care of the initial identity, then there is a very good opportunity for us to work together. So those sort of conversations happen every time we run into one another. And I think, you know, for the larger community's sake, I think it'd be a good collaboration for us. We've also talked to other frameworks. I mean, Polygon, we're using their blockchain. We've spoken to Polygon ID about, you know, how can we use theirs? Obviously, like you've mentioned before, we've spoken to Canada and how can we share, because we both started on the same original platform with the non-creds and stuff. So there's a natural way for us to actually communicate. So, you know, we will work on it and we'll continue to work on it to get it to work eventually.
Perfect. And I would imagine, I mean, one of the things especially for the tech folks on the call who are listening in, they're likely thinking about how they connect the APIs. But before all of that is done, you're doing all of the business and the governance work to make sure that those partners who you're connecting to, for example, your example with I think it's called SAMSA, connecting into Aadhaar, you did all the business and governance work to make sure that they were an acceptable partner. Because yes, the tech is there, but if you don't have the proper trust on the business and governance level, it's pointless. It's just tech at that point in time. So we reached the top of the panel time. Perhaps we can just get some short closing remarks. I would like to start with you, Secretary Jigme. You're on mute, sir.
Yeah, thanks, Daryl. I just wanted to say that we are very early in our journey in looking at decentralized approach to identifying individuals, things, you know, and it's already becoming extremely exciting in terms of the potential value that we can open up to this digital economy, particularly if we are able to guarantee privacy and trust. Very exciting days, and we're really looking forward to see how this evolves. Thanks,
Thank
Daryl.
you. Jacques?
Yeah, we're very excited about GAN and the opportunity that GAN will bring to us to speed up the adoption process globally. I also think that having, the opportunities like this to really talk about the platform helps us promote decentralized identity, but also promote Bhutan and what we've done here, not because we want to gain revenue or anything out of it, but actually because we want to help other people adopt and show them, it doesn't take a huge team or a huge amount of money to build these things. And that's why we're so open about publishing exactly how many people, what skills, how much are we paying, all that sort of stuff. So people, especially in developing countries, can see, but it's not going to break your bank to build something like this. And the best way, like we did with with guidance from people like Drummond and that team and the people in Canada that gave us some advice early on, was start small. Our first use case was literally just let's send a message between two wallets. And then it took us 6 months to get that right and do the first credential and stuff. And then from there, it starts snowballing. And, it took us 6 months for the first one. And now it takes us, between a week and 10 days to add a new verifiable credential onto the platform. So, very thankful that we could be here and talk to the people. So thank you, Daryl and Alex, for sorting all this out.
Thank you, Jacques. Kinga, any comments?
Nothing much. I would really like to thank GAN for having us here. And for me, I think SSI really changes how we do digital transformation. And GAN brings us at a very different level. And excited to be here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Also, I guess I'll speak for Drummond, as he's been disconnected now. He's in that aluminum tube going to Beijing. Secretary Jigme mentioned that Bhutan is early in its journey, but it is very impressive to see how far that journey has already gone, especially with the focus on personal identity. I know that down the road, and we'll probably have other meetings, other webinars with Bhutan, because there's so much to learn here, but down the road, or even already, is organizational identity. The businesses in Bhutan are already using the system. To me, it's a really compelling use case. The overall value you've added, I think, to your citizens, but also showing other folks what's possible, what's feasible, especially when you bring in all the way from very, very senior leadership in government all the way through to the technology, but not forgetting that it takes the business, the governance, and the tech to get the job done. I want to thank you all for joining us. Really, really appreciate it. And until next time, thank you.
Thank you, Daryl. Thank you again.
Thanks, folks.